So we've still got more Premier League talking points from round 26. As we already said, it was an exciting one in midweek. It gave us everything we needed, at the top of the table, at the bottom end. And again, we're starting with the top of the table, Victor. Manchester City beat Fulham, to maintain their title charge and reduce the lead between themselves and Arsenal to 4 points. Will they somehow start to believe that they can perhaps win the title again?
Yeah, I mean, of course, they're going to have their tails up. I did expect a good performance from City against Fulham because they beat Liverpool last time out. That gave them a lot of belief, and they delivered against Fulham as well. 3-0 up already at halftime. Everything was going swimmingly. It's hard for me to see them going on one of those huge winning runs this season, but they might not need to. Arsenal are pretty fragile, especially morale wise right now. Seeing what I saw at the end of the Brentford game. And with the exception of a few games, Arsenal have been very unconvincing to me, at least for about 2 months now. At least in terms of the eye test. Of course, the results were there, but the way they've been playing, it just hasn't been up to snuff for me. If they drop some points in the next 3 or 4 Prem games, City might end up being ahead of Arsenal even before they face each other in mid-April. And there's also the League Cup final, which if City win, it's going to chew away a bit more at Arsenal's belief. So it's a pretty good situation for City at the moment, but I'm not very confident in what Arsenal is going to do by the end.
Well, thankfully, football is not up to Victor only. It's up to Arsenal and the players on the pitch. But anyways, over to you, Mark. Manchester United needed a very, very late goal to avoid defeat against West Ham, and that result brought their winning run to an end. There was no haircut for the United strand, thankfully. But now the real question is, this is the first time in a long time that United played twice in the space of 7 days. Can we say maybe there was a case of lack of squad depth or fatigue, or was it just West Ham delivering their game plan very well?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it really affected them. I mean, yeah, it can feel like that because yeah, you already mentioned that they've been playing like once a week every time before that, but it just felt like the first half was quite bad for the team. But overall, I'd say at the end of the game they've been leading, they've been scoring even. They scored two, but one of them was a slight offside. So I'd say overall, I wouldn't say that there was a fatigue from the players, but they just didn't have the great day against West Ham, and West Ham really played well, I'd say, because we don't really often see them playing that way. So I'd say overall, yeah, maybe it affected a little, but overall, just a bad day.
Fair enough, just a bad day. We'll see what happens next time out. And back to you, Victor. Leeds produced an upset, if you can call it that, after coming from 2 goals down against Chelsea to secure a point. How disappointing is that result for Rosinius men, considering they should have won that game? And what do you think about Cole Palmer's miss right at the end of that game?
My God, that was a sitter, wasn't it? I think that could end up being the difference between Champions League and Europa League next season for Chelsea. Absolutely. Chelsea dominated against Leeds, but they also squandered quite a few opportunities even before the one from Palmer. It's understandable because it's a relatively young squad, but this is still a hell of a situation to be in after you've spent so much money over the last 2.5 years or so. They will be hurting for not winning this one, and I think it might damage the rest of their season as well. But yeah, it's tough to take, and they also have a difficult run after they take on Hull in the FA Cup and Burnley in the Prem. They're traveling to Arsenal and Villa after that, and if they don't start taking advantage of more of those chances, they might lose both of those games.
Yeah, fair enough. And back to you, Max. Bournemouth came from behind to beat Everton 2-1, and they are now one of only 3 sides who are without defeat in their last 5 league games. How much of an inspired signing has Ryan been already, scoring in his last 2 appearances for Bournemouth?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's obviously great when you just sold the Semenyo and now you have at least someone to improve you in attack, especially on the right flank. But I mean, he's obviously not the same type of player, but it's at least something for the Bournemouth because they've been looking pretty much doomed in attack, like for a recent month at least, and now they're at least showing some promise compared to what we've seen before. So I just don't see them making Europe anyway. So it's more or less they just didn't let Everton to dive in conversation for the Europe, and they more or less dumped both of them. I feel like they've been somewhere around 10th place anyways, but it's at least a promise for the future for the club.
Fair enough. And now to the final question for this video. We always save the best for the last, and even in our previews, we always say we don't know what to get with Spurs, and it's more or less the same once again. Tottenham suffered yet another defeat to Newcastle that led to the sacking of Thomas Frank. There are two questions for you, Victor. First off, what do you make of that decision to sack Thomas Frank? And seeing that Spurs are only 5 points away from West Ham, are they really in the relegation discussion at this point?
They might be in the relegation discussion, but I don't think there's any real relegation danger, honestly. Of course, it's always going to be pointed out, oh my God, look where they are in the table, because they're supposed to be one of the big sides, you know. But saying they'll get relegated to me is just delusional. As for Frank, I genuinely believe he's a victim of bad luck more than anything. Constantly having around 10 players missing due to injuries is going to be a huge problem for any club and any coach, especially when you think about the names that have been out for so long, like Madison and Kulusevski, two of the best players they have. They've been at the forefront since they arrived at the club. As for Frank himself as a coach, I think he'll be fine. I don't think he should be proving himself again at a lower side before being trusted with a big club again. I think this was more down to bad luck and the club more than Frank himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think if managers like Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte could even struggle at Spurs, I mean, there's some bad air at that club, man, for real. But yeah, that's all we have for round 26. It was really action-packed. It gave us everything we needed, all the narratives, all the best bits. And now we can actually look forward to a weekend where there is no Premier League action because there will be the FA Cup, but we'll be discussing and we'll be giving a preview of that in another video. So stay tuned so you don't miss out on that one.